Joining us now is Better Cities Project co-founder and policy director, Patrick Tuohey. Patrick, just explain this and go into what is happening with these city-owned grocery stores.
So I started writing about this 10 years ago, and I was looking back at some of my columns back then, and I predicted all of this. What happened was the city was eager to do something that looked good, that felt like it was helping people, but they ignored basic free market principles. They invested in a grocery store that private investors wanted to have nothing to do with. And because they didn't then provide the public safety and the transit that people in the community needed, it failed, and it started failing almost immediately.
Well, and of course, it's the taxpayers who, are the ones impacted by this. President Trump gave a speech back in 2019, Patrick, to the Venezuelan community in Miami, and he said this, and I think this just nails it on socialism. This is what he said. He said, "We know that socialism is not about justice. It's not about equality. It's not about lifting up the poor. It's about one thing only, power for the ruling class. And the more power they get, the more power they crave." I mean, that's socialism.
Well, the real tragedy of this here in Kansas City with both the buses and the grocery stores is that working class people who desperately rely on this as transit or as a source of food have been shortchanged, right? They are worse off. Not only has the city lost a bunch of money, but the people that they were supposed to help, that they were trying to help, are made poorer, are made worse off. And again, it's not because we didn't know this was coming. It's because politicians want to look generous. They want to look like they're solving a problem. And in the end, they don't.
Patrick, who profited off of this, though? Who did well? Clearly not the people who are in need of these grocery stores.
No, it may have been the people who owned the property where the grocery store existed before. Maybe it was the people who rehabbed the site years ago. But this is a kind of thing where I don't know that anybody won. The city council does not appreciate the national news they're getting because of these two policies. The people they were trying to help aren't any better off. And me as a Kansas Citian, the places where I want my tax dollars to go, again, public safety, infrastructure, roads, it's not going there.
Well, it's also like the same people who want to dictate what kind of car you drive, the stoves you have, your ability to eat meat. Why do we also want them in control of our lifeline, food?
You make a great point. It's not just Kansas City, but in cities big and small all over the country, what legislators have forgotten is that their job is to basically provide the foundation for private and nonprofit investment, right? Make sure the streets are paved, make sure the streets are safe, make sure infrastructure is dealt with. And then once you do that, nonprofits and business will come in and do everything else. But those basic jobs, public safety, are very difficult. And so sometimes the city just says, you know what, let's skip the vegetables and let's go right to the dessert. And it never works.
Patrick, that's the shocking thing, is the number of cities, as you said, big and small, who experiment with this. That's not the country that we live in.
No, and look, a lot of times it's the fault of the voters, because too often we turn to our local politicians and we say, do something, when in fact what we need to do is say to them, stay out of the way from housing, from transit, from grocery stores. You've made things worse. Get out of the way and let the people build and invest.
Right.
Great
That's
point.
why we have a persistent homelessness problem, is because the organizations set up to prevent and fight homelessness, they stop existing if they actually solve the problem. And therein lies
well, it's that, and
right.
And it simply could be all the well-intended regulations that cities put in there about the number of square feet or all these things end up getting in the way. One last thing about the buses. For years now, if you survey people who ride buses, who depend on buses for transit, they don't complain about the fare. They want cleaner buses. They want better service. And when Kansas City got rid of the fare, we saw a lot of people who just used the buses as rolling shelters. And assaults went up. Bus drivers felt less safe. And again, the entire community is affected.
Patrick Tuohey, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Very interesting.
It's my pleasure.